Well, supposing every student had been armed, that would be the other extreme of this. How many people would have died in a shootout?
All right, well...
How many more shootouts would there be?
I don't know, yeah.
Well, I don't know, but in that particular case, the first one who got a shot into that shooter would have ended the
Then they shot him because obviously the person shooting the shooter is shooting.
All right, well, look, I was only quoting what I have heard other people say,
right.
All right?
Don't take any responsibility.
This is not, I have not yet totally given you my personal opinion.
Oh.
But there are different kinds of firearms. And when we're talking about control, the hunters say, well, we should have the right to go out and shoot deer and squirrel or ducks or whatever. Why would anyone keep us from having our hunting weapons? And then if you go to the other extreme, then you've got these machine guns and multiple, whatever you call them, the ones that can shoot 10 or 15 automatic weapons,
fully automatic weapons,
which are not used for hunting.
Well, some people.
Well, they're not designed for hunting, and the hunting organizations would not object to their being restricted. So, and then in between that, there are the semi-automatic or the fully automatic handguns, and then there are handguns that just shoot one shot, I guess. And so when we're talking about control, should we break it down and say, well, let's control this and this and this, but not that and that and that?
Absolutely, I think so. And I think that was kind of what was initiated by LBJ back in '68 when the Gun Control Act demanded that all non-sporting weapons or all non-sporting firearms could not be brought into the United States as imports. And then again in 1986, the laws, specified, well, we don't want machine guns in the hands of your average citizen.
Right.
I think the Brady Bill, it maybe even carried that a little further, and I think that's a good restriction to have in place.
All right. Let's talk about if as of today they prohibited the purchase of any legitimate purchase of any firearms. And let's really talk about handguns. How many of them are out there right now? Now, this is something I'm reading here that says there are roughly 815,000 handguns manufactured in the U.S. in the year 2005. And according to the International Trade Commission, we imported 878,000 in the year 2005. How many guns are out there right now in our society? And if we stopped manufacturing and buying any new ones, how much good would that do?
Well, I think that comes back to the question, can you legislate personal responsibility? I mean, you talk about the prohibition of the 1920s. Did that stop bootlegging?
No, it started bootlegging.
Did it stop drinking?
Did it stop drinking? There are limits to what legislation can do. I mean, if someone who's crazy enough, like the Virginia Tech guy, wanted to get his hands on an illegal firearm, he probably could have. I mean, guns are out there and guns are available. But that doesn't mean that we can't set policies in place to slowly...
Well, I think there's a parallel here, I think, with that. And, driving a car is not in the Constitution, although it could well have been if it had been automobiles back there. But yet you can't just go in and buy a car and drive off unless you have a license. You have to have a license. You have to be trained to drive the car. And if you get stopped with the car and no license, you face certain penalties. They may not be as draconian as they should be, but there's certain penalties. What happens if you had a system like that? We say guns are perfectly legal, but if you own a gun, you have to have a license and proof that you are trained, number one. And number two, they can manufacture guns that would cost them a little more, percentage-wise, that only works for the person it's made for. It's the fingerprint thing on the gun, where only the person that has got the fingerprints can fire that particular gun. Did you know that? It would cost them something like $30 more to put this technology. So you couldn't steal somebody's gun or even sell your own gun unless you had the proper fingerprints to go with it.
Well, I hear what you're saying, but then that doesn't eliminate the millions
that are already out there. That's true. Well, it would start a trend. Wouldn't it start a trend one direction or another?
Well, just a question of how many years it would take.
Okay, I'll tell you what. For the next civilization, okay, after the United States collapses under its own filth and wealth and whatever, maybe we should do that. Those of us who are still here.
Ryan, you suggested that there should be certain kinds of controls that would be useful and desirable as opposed to controlling everything. If you were, are you talking about some new legislation? And if so, what would you want it to say?
Well, new legislation really could deal with private gun sales. If there was some way to control the gun shows, the gun trade, if there was some way, I really don't think the manufacturer is to blame in this case. I really do think that it's the seller in between that really has the issue.
Have you been to a gun show?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Can you just walk in and buy a gun?
Not in most cases.
Okay.
You can here in Louisiana at a gun show.
You can just go in and buy a gun without even telling them who you are?
Well, no, you have to show proof. Because I bought a gun at a gun show, all right?
Okay.
I had to show proof that I was a Louisiana resident because this gun show was in Louisiana. With that, and I don't know what the law is, that was all they required.
So they didn't do a background check?
No.
They didn't find out that you had that?
They didn't find out that, that I've threatened you.
Yeah.
Anyway.
By the way, we were all patted down on the way in.
Some in some areas that are more restrictive than others. Some of them, I think, have no restriction. But let me just tell you something else. It says here that studies conducted at both local and national level indicate the overwhelming majority of murders are committed by people with previous criminal records. Even a significant percentage of homicide victims themselves have criminal records. So you could have all of this stuff in place and licenses and whatever you would like to have. These people who are doing this, that's not how they're going to get their guns. That they could care less about licensing and background checks.
Life itself.
Because they're going to get their guns off some illegitimate means. So how can we improve what we do perceive as a problem of innocent people getting shot?
Well, you're saying most of them aren't innocent. Most of them have a criminal record.
I don't care about them. I want to know about the innocent people who are getting shot.
People at Target yesterday in Kansas City.
How do we,
the friends of mine up in Baton Rouge that somebody broke in.
Or Mandeville.
There's no end to illustrations of innocent people who got shot, aside from the ones who were shot by their husbands and lovers and whatever.
Who were somehow involved.
I'm talking about by third parties. What can we do to try to reduce or eliminate that problem?
Improving the human condition.
I heard what you said. Now, how do you do that?
I have an answer for you.
It just seems to me that we need to find ways where we can affect human relationships, affect how these people live in society. I read a column on the Humanist News Network where someone said something to the extent of we can't legislate personal responsibility. If someone like a secular humanist group, or in my case a church, would step in and find that individual.
We're going to have to end with that hopeful comment because our show has come to an end. It goes very fast. I sincerely regret it. I want to thank all you folks who've been watching our program. And I do hope that we'll see you again next time.